Welcome to Inside Games, the only gaming news show brave enough, the only gaming news show brave enough to play Resident Evil Requiem all the way through.
Yeah, this was a weird trend I noticed in some reviews is that, I don't mean to imply that people didn't play it all the way through. Of course they did. It's actually a pretty fun game to finish, pretty easy ride. But a lot of other reviews are ones that had the pre-release embargo. They weren't able to really talk about the back half of the game. I can understand why for spoilers reasons. I'm going to try my hardest. I think we'll both try our hardest to not explicitly spoil anything. But at this point, it's been out for a while. I feel like we can just kind of talk about stuff openly. So I'm not going to go out of my way to spoil stuff, but there will probably be some mention of something, you know.
So be careful, but we're going to do our best to not really fully reveal every single plot beat. But we have to talk about the plot in order to review the game.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to story, though, Resident Evil Requiem, it's like the story is just it's just enough to prop up the action sequences and the cinematic beats they want to hit. And those work well enough within their given scenes. But yeah, even before we started recording, Bruce, you were asking about, there's a sequence where a bunch of, light spoilers, whatever, a bunch of mind controlled little children are following you and chasing you and trying to get you. You were looking for some kind of story reason that was happening, right?
Yeah, I was reading the synopsis on Wiki, and I was like, why? I don't know. So, and I don't, this is sort of a way for me to launch into the review, because I don't want you to think that I was like, boy, this is stupid. I'm going to go try and figure out why they're explaining this, or if they explained it. And the answer really is, I enjoyed the plot so much, and I knew it was stupid enough to where I went looking for reasons to want to like it, if that makes sense. So rather than being like, this is so stupid, usually when a plot is so stupid, I just throw it out. I don't even care anymore. It's like, sure, hit me with a bunch of garbage. In Requiem, I very much enjoyed what they were trying to do. And even when there were things that happened, there's a very specific action scene that Leon goes through, and they're trying to sort of explain why it's happening. I loved it. I was so excited by the fact that they were doing this. It involves a motorbike, but I love the sequence. And instead of, again, with stupid action plots that I don't care about, I just sort of write it off and go, yeah, whatever, sure. But in Resident Evil Requiem, I wanted to find a reason why he could do the things he was doing. And I wanted to find a reason why Grace could do the things they were doing, and why Zeno could do the things he was doing. So that to me told me I was invested in the story.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's very uncharacteristic that you would even care, especially in a game like Resident Evil, where I'm already at the point where I don't look for answers anymore, because I'm not confident that they cared enough to put them in the game. Typically, it's rule of cool for Resident Evil. Something, a virus did it. So that's kind of where I wrote off most of the plot, even though I found it pretty satisfying and conclusive, unnaturally conclusive for a Resident Evil game. Now I'm curious, Bruce, what has your journey revealed? Have you found some greater virtue in the storyline? Because I was just popcorning my way through the whole thing, and I got to the end, and I was like, yay! And that was pretty much it.
All right, so I'm going to wave my hands on the spoilers here. And then that way, so you'll know when I'm done, because I'll do this. All right, you'll know it. So if you want to mute it, it's only going to be a minute. I'll very briefly go through it. But at the end of the game, it seems like they are wrapping up Leon's story. Leon doesn't die, at least in the proper ending. There are two endings. In the proper ending, he doesn't die, and he sort of is like, all right, well, see you later. And maybe we'll see Leon in another game or whatever. But it was a very interesting wrap up, because now the world knows about T-Virus. And apparently in every other Resident Evil game, it was covered up, which is insane to me. But I liked that. I thought it was cool that there were stakes to this game. And also, I really liked Elpis. The stupidest word ever. I hated hearing it said over and over, Elpis. But Elpis was what they were looking for basically the whole game, which is Victor Gideon thought it was a way to transfer the T-Virus was a way to transfer consciousness from one body to another. And then Zeno thought it was something else, blah, blah, blah. And you find out that it's an antiviral, which I thought was a cool reveal. And I was like, oh, wow. It was just a way to nullify every virus, including the T-Virus. So I really enjoyed those reveals and thought that was really cool. And it felt like there were actual stakes versus most Resident Evil games, apart from 7 and 8, don't feel like anything is at stake. It just feels like a bunch of bullshit hitting you in the face.
Well, I'm going to tap in then.
Oh, shit. Okay. All right. Hold on. Lawrence has got spoilers.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong about it being conclusive. Really, Requiem is it's kind of the conclusion of all of the Resident Evil games until now. I mean, discounting the viruses that are still out there and the numerous like arms manufacturers that might try to make variants, but it really closes the loop on the T virus, its origin, and its conclusion, because I guess now there's just it's fixed. The thing that gets me, though, it's a fun reveal, like you said, that, yeah, the Elpis is essentially just a cure for zombishness, which is neat and consequential for Resident Evil. But the motivations are a bit silly, and also everything about the game is predicated on misunderstanding that, which is kind of fun. I guess I like my gotcha swerves, but the character motivations are a bit silly, and I think that's when you have to ignore stuff. So the story was, right, that Spencer, the erratic billionaire that basically tried to attain immortality, but in so doing created the T virus and zombies. It turns out that, again, okay, here's the big wave. This is the cataclysmic reveal, is that he felt bad about it in the end. He was like, dang it, whoopsie. All right, I guess I'll make an antivirus and I'll hide it. I'll hide it behind a stack of crazy riddles, and people are going to spend decades fucking fighting zombies and making crazy liquors. I could just put it out there. I'm rich. I could just make like a vault of it and just put a big sign saying cure right here with a big arrow. But instead, I'm going to come up with code words, and it was like Rogue One, but way less interesting, the Stardust thing. So whatever, but hey, you know what? Resident Evil is a universe where people come up with bunches of needless riddles to hide their keys and their bullets and their herbs. So it was campy and it didn't make sense, but I found that kind of comforting. But I didn't find it like really satisfying, like an ultimately super well written story. It was written like a good Resident Evil story, where we had the beats, we actually had, like I said, a natural conclusion. But I think if you scratch too hard, it's just gonna flake away. But that's always what it's been, you know. So I'm not gonna hold that against it.
All right, so we'll stop spoilers here. I promise we'll stop spoilers.
Yeah, I think no more spoilers. Maybe gameplay spoilers or setting spoilers or something after this. But
yeah, and I could talk generally about the plot, because you're right, Lawrence. My expectations for Resident Evil are on the floor. They are so low because I played all the Resident Evils at this point, and they are so low that any story at all, I'm like, oh, thank God. Yeah, give me something to motivate these characters other than, you know, like Resident Evil 6, helicopters exploding and everybody's on dirt bikes. It's like just ridiculous. Same with Resident Evil 5. Lawrence and I just played through Resident Evil 5. It's insane. There is literally almost nothing there to tie it together. And I wanted to make this very important point about Resident Evil 7, 8, and 9. 7, 8, and 9 are all basically, they have a bunch of different like crew that made the game. Writers, directors, producers. But there is one producer that runs across all three of these, 7, 8, and 9. And it's Masachika Kawada. And then this was like, I was trying to find, like, I was like, why are all these games, they all feel salient. As opposed to Resident Evil, even 4. 4 is like, that's just like, come on, man. There's no story there. The game's great, but there's just no story. 7, 8, and 9 clearly have like defined goals for where they want the story to go. Whether or not the story gets there in the right way, you know, we can debate it. But I really do think 7, 8, and 9 have brought this franchise into actual storytelling versus like just fucking stupid video games that we all loved, where we shoot a rocket launcher and Leon says, you know, I guess he's not going to make bingo, whatever the fuck, you know, like none of that shit. Right? And I really do think that 7, 8, 9 are good storytelling for the most part. 9's a little rough. I understand, Lawrence, you're totally right. But I think 7 and 8 are tight stories. And I don't say that often about video games. So I've been kind of won over.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I think that was the point, right? I think it was made to be an enjoyable ride with a few twists and thrills along the way. And I think, yes, they've gotten a lot better at delivering that with some kind of backbone. There is at least some kind of tissue connecting all those cinematic beats that they want to hit, like Leon fighting a helicopter. Would you cram that right in there? Whatever. Now, yeah, it does kind of go through a flow. And I guess that can connect us right to the gameplay aspect of the game, where you have two protagonists in this game, each play extremely differently. It's almost kind of like they kind of represent the two flavors of Resident Evil at the extreme ends of the spectrum. Grace is meek and new to the universe, so she's not yet super powered. So she is still a very frail and fragile human being. Her sections play much more like classic Resident Evil, where you're getting through a room with 3 zombies is a problem with Grace. And a lot of her gameplay is also, ferrying objects back and forth across a labyrinthine environment with various locked doors. And in so doing, you kind of get a lay of the land. You kill the zombies that are important, ignore the ones that you can ignore. Leon, however, is an action hero. He's been through too many Resident Evils to take things slow. So he's karate kicking, backflipping, shooting everybody, shooting 2 guns at once. Well, he doesn't really do that in this game. No, he left that behind in 6, unfortunately. So the two gameplay approach is really cool. It's something that I don't think necessarily holds up over the whole run of the game, even though the whole run of the game is super fun. But I think Grace, she becomes increasingly she's de-escalated over the course of the game. Her sections get smaller and her gameplay gets less interesting, I think. Whereas Leon just ramps up and up and up. So there's kind of a trade-off, almost a handoff, which I think is a bit of a bummer. My high-level takeaway for the gameplay is that I thought Grace's sections were kind of a new classic for Resident Evil. They're so much above what Resident Evil has been and kind of a reinvention of that classic sentiment that I was almost a little disappointed with how Leon heavy the rest of the game is, even though I really like Leon and I like playing as him. And I think the Leon sections are kind of like, they're some of the best third-person action. But man, Grace's stuff is just so much more vaulted. There's so much more potential there to kind of expand what Resident Evil can be based on its roots. But still, really fun mix, and I like the mix. I don't know. What about you, Bruce?
Yeah. No, Lawrence, I think you hit the nail on the head. I thought, interestingly enough, I thought Grace sections and Leon sections are both a little long in the tooth. And I was enjoying what I was playing, and I was like, okay, let's move on to Leon, because I know we're going to do it. And then we get to Leon, and we play like 3 hours Leon. I'm like, all right, let's move back to Grace. I think that what will solve this, because I think I know what they were going for, which was they're going for the action movie climax. And now most action movies nowadays, the big $200 million action movies, they have 3 stories, usually sometimes 2, sometimes 3 stories. And they cycle through those stories for the last 30 to 45 minutes of the movie. I don't mean to pull back the veil, but that's usually what happens. It's really well done. Maybe the best example of this is Return of the Jedi. Most people know this. Return of the Jedi has 3 stories happening all in parallel, and they cycle through those stories, and it's paced almost perfectly. And I think that's what Resident Evil Requiem is going for. So there are a couple of sections in Requiem where they cycle from Grace to Leon to Grace to Leon. I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted. Grace was felt really underpowered. She's barely getting through a room, like you said. But then they cut to Leon, and he's fucking blasting his way through it. You're like, that's exactly what I needed. It's like the palate cleanser to Grace. And then once Leon gets a little long, they can cycle back to Grace, because Grace is the palate cleanser to Leon. If they'd done a little more cycling, then I think the game would have felt better. But again, the sections feel a little long in the tooth. So it's like you play 3 to 4 hours of each, and you're kind of like, all right, well, I wish that maybe I could move back to Grace now. But that said, I'm really nitpicking. I had a blast doing all of it. I was having so much fun. I'm just really reaching to find something to talk about. I loved it. I really did.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, is that it's so good at what it does, and it's executing it so confidently that any small little problems kind of stand out a little more brightly because they're surrounded by everything else. Everything else is so perfect. That one little hitch kind of sticks out a little bit. So yeah, my little hitch is that I do wish that Grace had one more kind of labyrinth to play, because that's where it would start. It would felt super magical. When I'm playing as Leon, it's magical because it's so silly, and I don't think I'll ever get tired of that. And man, Capcom does bombast super well. You would think with the game starting as it does, it's almost a bit more like 7 or Biohazard, where you're so small and frail and slow. But yeah, by the end of it, you mentioned motorcycles, and then you're almost right back to Resident Evil ridiculousness by the time you hit the climax. So this game itself, even though it has these 2 characters, it also has this escalation where it goes right back up to Resident Evil ridiculousness by the end, but still manages to stay a little bit grounded.
So we talked about the writing, but I want to talk about just sort of to cycle into the voice acting, because we could talk about the Grace sections and the Leon sections. The voice acting is practically perfect. I think that not only is the writing great, but I think the voice direction is great. So whoever's directing Leon, for example, has great one-liners, but they're usually so fucking stupid. I hate them. in the old Resident Evils, and in Requiem,
yeah, they're so corny.
And in Requiem, the direction is great. Nick Apostolides is the voice of Leon from the remakes. He's in RE4 remake, and he just does an amazing job again with the voice direction of reading these one-liners that are pretty stupid, but they don't sound stupid coming out of it clearly an action hero's mouth. And obviously, I don't know if you want to talk about Grace, but Grace is just the best.
All the cutscene audio, like the non-interactive audio, is superb, and I think it for a game to have not only you playing but also just in its narrative, basically a super powered superhero character and a like frail, scared individual, and have them like interact and kind of be a part of the same universe. I can't think of many other anythings that can do that well, and they do it really well here. And I think the voice acting has a lot to do with that. To that point, though, when you're playing as Grace, you hear all of her scared breathing. She's always like, her breath is always crazy stuttered. She's always gasping at things, and it never feels annoying. Like, you would think if that audio is always playing that it would get on your nerves at some point, but no. It always kept my tensions high, like, and perfectly anxious and aware. And I think just to step away from the voice acting a little bit, the audio in the game is just amazing all around. A little clickety clacks when you're reloading your gun as Leon. It's just like such good audio gun porn. The groans and moans of the zombies are great, and they're actually a really valuable gameplay tool when you're playing as Grace, because you can hear where the zombies are in a room before you go through the door. So just by like pausing at the door, you can hear that there's one right there, but there's one further across the room on the left, and like it sounds right. So you can make your plans and like get through the room safely based on like audio becomes a really good gameplay tool, which to me it's like it sounds good, okay, but it's like it's functional on top of that. That's an extra layer to the audio, and this game's got a lot of that.
Yeah, it really is masterful. It was some of the best audio mixing I've ever heard in any video game, and I was kind of shocked at how good it was, because you're right. Like it was literally like being there, where you'd walk up to a door and you could hear that. Okay, well, you had, like you said, you had like a few zombies here and there. And you got worried. I remember getting worried because I would hear the singing of the screamers.
Oh yeah,
and I was like, fuck. I knew exactly what that meant, and I was like, I know, man, I gotta deal with this. And so you walk up to another door and you hear them eating, and you're like, all right, well, I don't want to disturb that one. I also want to shout out Angela Santolbano, who did Grace's voice, because I shouted out Nick Apostolides, but I want to make sure I shout out Angela too, because I'm telling you, Grace and Leon are pitch perfect as well. So yeah, the audio is just perfect. I don't know that there are any flaws there at all.
Yeah, none really. The only thing I can kind of think of is that some of the score is just a tad generic, but that's also kind of how Resident Evil sounds. It's a weird comment to make, but Resident Evil has always tried to be and sounded like summer Hollywood blockbuster, and there's still a lot of that in this score. You know, the strings and bums, and so that's kind of there. There was a little more personality in Leon's combat music. Like this, just like Hollywood Horror Nights. I always call it that. This Hollywood Horror Nights kind of industrial horror music follows him around because he's cooler and more hardcore and more action, and his music definitely reflects that. So I think it kind of leans into the camp as well. Like whenever his ridiculous music would start playing after he just like roundhouse kicked some zombie's head off, it makes me smirk every time.
No, it's great. It actually got me super pumped. And I would, and like also sometimes it would start, or actually it would keep going even if you kicked what you thought was the last zombie, and you'd be like, that means there are other zombies around. And it for sure got me ready to go to like pull out my shotgun and just blow their heads off. It was like, it felt so good with that music. And you're right, Lawrence. It wasn't perfect, but it was damn near close. I was enjoying it, and again, my expectations for Resident Evil music on the floor. Like it's usually terrible. I don't even notice it, but I actually noticed it and enjoyed it.
Yeah, and then there were some, I guess musically, there were a bit more throwbacks in this. I mean, you've got like the save room theme. You can kind of hear it lilting in the background when you go in there. But then there's, you go to older. Trying to think of how to phrase this delicately for anyone that made it. You revisit places from other Resident Evil games, and you can kind of hear some of that music working in as well. Somebody commented that this is the Metal Gear Solid 4 of Resident Evil games, and I kind of get it. Got your tortured protagonist getting ground down over the course of the whole game, and then you revisit areas, and it's very sad to see how run down everything is. So that was just a fun comparison. But in the vein of it being a blockbuster, we got to talk about how good it looks, because this is one of the prettiest games I think I've ever seen. What do you think?
100%. I mean, this is the best the RE engine has ever looked, by far and away. I don't. The lighting, even in the there's post-apocalyptic sections. Even in the post-apocalyptic sections, they're really gray and drab. And usually video games just kind of look like nothing. It's usually really flat. But I actually really felt I bought in there, even though it was like it had all been blown up and it was gray and brown. The lighting is what brought it to life, and I was shocked at how good that lighting was in a post-apocalyptic scenario. Obviously, in the mansion that Grace is in, it's colorful and parts of it are bright, parts of it are really dark, and that's great. There's lots of contrast there. But I thought for sure that the post-apocalyptic section that Leon was in would look like trash. I was going to get tired of it, but I really didn't. The more that I could look for the sunset or look for lights going through, blown out windows or whatever, just looked beautiful.
It's weird. I had flashes of, oh my gosh, this is going to date me hard, but we're talking about Resident Evil, so whatever. I had flashes of the movie trailer for Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, where there's like a spotlight sweeping through this like bombed out building, and thinking about the haze of the air and just how dead and clouded everything looked in that trailer. I don't know. Playing through that section in Requiem reminded me of that for whatever reason. So I guess we finally arrived where video games look as good or better than films. It's interesting that you bring up that section too, because one of my notes was that Raccoon City looked a little bland when you go back there, compared to just how intimate I think the sanitarium is, or the hospital that you play as is Grace. And yeah, when you mentioned some areas are well lit, some areas are pitch black, they use light like a scalpel in this game. Every room has such a perfect touch. There's the right light in the right spot to show you exactly the right thing, or potentially intentionally not show you what you're not meant to see, all for the sake of good scares. And they're all so good. And it does such a good job of pulling you into the environment. I think, I could be wrong about this, but I think we're seeing finally games that have been designed from the ground up for ray tracing, games that can assume that everything it'll run on will have it, so they can start to light scenes with it. And I think we're starting to see the evidence of that, where you put lights behind objects or around objects, and then the shadows they cast become part of the scene and the layout.
Yeah, the first time we saw that was in Indiana Jones in the Great Circle, because that was like forced hardware ray tracing, basically. And that game had that, and this game I think does it better than Indiana Jones. And also talking about all these environments that we're in, again, very minor spoilers, but every Resident Evil ends in a lab. Once we get to the lab at the end of this game, I loved the contrast and the colors of the lab. It finally felt like I was in a lab. that was like cool. Every other lab that I've seen, there was maybe RE2's lab was pretty good too. They were getting there. They're like coming up on it. But this lab, I think, and this Resident Evil lab is maybe the best lab they've made. I very much liked it. And also, first person and third person. A lot of people have been talking about the fact that you could cycle between first and third person for either character. First person was meant for Grace. Third person is meant for Leon. I actually recommend that you stay in those. I played through Grace all the way first person because I didn't want to hamper the scares that you get with Grace. And then with Leon, third person is the way to go because you get to see his rippling biceps just rip through zombie after zombie.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's pretty clever of them to have that set by default, and I think it matches their play styles super well. I think that plays into the animations too, I think that plays into the visuals as well, because like you mentioned, you get to see Leon's rippling biceps, but he moves like an action hero in this game. There's a lot of cool incidental animations that just add cool points. It's just swag points out of nowhere. So if you like go from a melee into aim down sight, he'll switch into like a hip fire for a few shots and then level out. And it's just like little touches like that. It doesn't jerk your aim around. It doesn't really have anything to do with it. It's just they put in little like transition animations now that further express the character's ridiculousness in the case of Leon. There is a gameplay implication there though. I think I didn't 100% test this, but I'm pretty sure that there are animations in third person that can temporarily lock you out of inputs, whereas you won't get those in first person. So if, like, let's say that you swing the camera around and hit a button, if you're Leon and you're like running this way and you change direction, he'll either turn like a tire, like he'll do a long turn, or he'll like stop in place and then go back the other direction. But like either of those animations is a beat that doesn't happen if you're in first person. You swing the camera around and you're instantly going whichever way the camera's pointing. And I think there's little bits like that too. I think if zombies grab you and stuff like that, I think there's little incidental animations. So playing in third person might actually make the game just a wee bit harder, but it is worth it to see Leon and just the animations in general, apart from the characters you play. My God, there's some monstrosities in this game, and to see them move around is so incredible. The way that they like, the way that monsters will like bend and like step through a low door and come out, especially when you don't think they can fit through, and then they're just like bloop, like an octopus squirting on through. Oh. And then again with I actually did look it up. The game does not require ray tracing. But the way that light hits these monsters when they come into a room is just so incredible. It makes it look, it's like there's a brief moment where you're like, oh my God, like it doesn't look like a video game character, or at least it matches its environment so well that you have that like almost Ring moment where it's like, it shouldn't look like that. It shouldn't look that good.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's funny because the playing the giant Resident Evil bosses, like the monstrosities that are just a bunch of fucking, muscle and blood and shit like that. I actually didn't care about the
Meat Mountain, giant bug, giant mutant lizard.
This is the best they've looked across all Resident Evils. I still don't care. I actually was very much enjoying just the way the regular zombies looked. The regular zombies looked amazing, and I think they looked the best that I've ever thought they looked in this franchise in the post-apocalyptic section. Because the post-apocalyptic section, they're old. And so like when you shoot them, pieces of them fly off. So like there were times that if you shoot them in the head enough, half of their skull would fly off. And so then you would see like some hair on one side and a brain on another. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. Just beautiful. It really made you feel like an action hero because you're literally blowing pieces of them off. And the destruction and animation tied together just, oh my gosh, just the best. Yeah, I didn't care about the giant monsters that you have to fight in Resident Evil. You have to do that a lot. And I'm kind of tired of seeing those. But the regular zombies, just so good.
I mean, I kind of wished, because this has regular zombies, it's got bosses, but in the gray sections you actually have like kind of mini boss zombies. You have these like kind of like big class zombies that you can hear. That's the other thing that makes the gray section so cool is you can hear them stomping around, whether they're above you or in the room next to you. You can use that to plan how you're going to get back to a safe room or something like that. So again, there's these flashes of something really evolved. And I thought that was such a great idea. In addition to all the smaller zombies, even themselves, which have different temperaments or attack styles. Like you've got the opera zombie, you've got the zombie with an IV who hates noise, you've got the zombie that hates light. That's kind of why I loved all that stuff, and I thought it was super textured, which I think it's like there's still a weird, I feel like there's an interesting slide when you go into Leon, and then it's like, and now there's just zombie when you're in Raccoon City, right? They all just pop out and they run at you. So it's like, the gameplay kind of gets, it's almost like a weird funneling of the gameplay. It gets simpler as you get more Leon, and then you're just kind of downsliding to the end of the game. And I think that actually might be for the best now that I think about it. If that's done by intent, you're probably at your most willing to endure losses and confusing game mechanics at the beginning of the game. But then by the end, you just want to step on the gas and shoot a bunch of zombies and hear Leon spout some one-liners and blow stuff up.
That's exactly how I felt. Because
okay.
I will say Resident Evil Village is my favorite of the Resident Evils, which is kind of a weird take. The reason I say that is because it's a perfectly paced single-player video game. And if you want to look at good paces for single-player video games, you're going to look at the Half-Lives. So you're going to look at Half-Life 1, 2, and Alyx. And Half-Life 1, 2, and Alyx do exactly that. You start off very underpowered in all of those games. You're like really having trouble reloading a gun in Alyx. And you're like, you only got a pistol. And then as Alyx plays out, you start to get bigger, better weapons. Half-Life 2 is the same way. Half-Life 2 is like, you barely get through it. You're really having trouble. Sometimes you get the gravity gun occasionally, right? You get to use the gravity gun, and that's really fun. But at the end of Half-Life 2, you get the gravity gun, you get to fire around those orbs, and those orbs just blow everything up. And that's what I wanted at the end of Requiem, and I got it. Leon is just a monster. He's got every single gun and knows how to use it. And back to your animation point, watching Leon reload a shotgun or reload a pistol, put the flashlight on its chin, and sit there and do it one-handed and shit. I was like, fuck, that's so cool.
Yeah, loads of gun reload porn with Leon, which kind of started to be a thing in Resident Evil 4. So I like that they've attached it to this character all the way. But yeah, he does the like John Wick reload where he's got like 3 shells in his palm and shoves them all in. Ugh, it's good shit. And yeah, never get tired of seeing it. To the degree where like I kind of looked forward to getting new guns just to see how he would reload them. Yeah, just Ooze is cool. Which kind of, I guess, brings me back to kind of how I feel about the whole game. It feels like it's a third of a really profound, new, fundamental kind of survival horror at the beginning, and then 2/3 of like Capcom's best action, high-budget blockbuster entertainment. It's kind of conceptually a strange package to think about that being one game or one narrative, but I think it's woven back and forth really well, which I think is another testament to how well made the game is. I think for me personally, I could have used like one more mechanic heavy grace section, one like proper classic Resident Evil thing, but I don't know. I had fun the whole way. It's, I guess, maybe a shorter game depending on what your taste for game length might be. I think 8 hours is probably around where most people are going to finish it. But I've already started a second playthrough. I'm playing through it on Insanity, which is, it's a different kind of game on Insanity. Like everything one-shots you as Grace until you get at least 1 health upgrade. The items are in a different spot, so you have to find them again. You have way fewer of them. It turns it into a puzzle game. Like it reminds me of Clock Tower, where you have to do a point and click and everything is a one-hit death. So, you know, there's depth there if you want it. There's tons of unlockables. That's how I kind of feel about it. Super easy game to recommend. Interesting, and like there's a whiff of potential there, and I hope they explore it in the future. But what do you think about it, Bruce?
Yeah. So took me about 10.5 hours to finish it. I took my time. I really wandered around, tried to explore as much as I could. Had a blast. Would think about playing it again the second time, which I never do with most video games. But I was like, yeah, you know what? I wouldn't mind going through this again. And I will say, again, nitpicking it, if you don't have the background, the context to Leon, I don't know that you'll think Leon is as cool as we do. We know that he's cool in a like a really campy, sort of Fast and Furious sense, in like Resident Evil 4. You know, like yeah, all right. You know, like he's like saying a bunch of shitty one-liners, and it's like you sort of like laugh and like roll your eyes. It's kind of cringy. And in Requiem, it really isn't. Like they did a really good job of making it so it's not so cringy. Like it's funny, and it's expected with this sort of action hero. But if you don't have that context, Requiem may be weird. It may feel like Leon is just like this unstoppable force. You're like, well, how could you ever lose as Leon? If you don't have that context, it might feel weird. That's like my only nitpick there. It's what it feels like is if you watched, what's the last James Bond film with Daniel? The last one Daniel Craig did.
Oh, No Time to Die?
No Time to Die. It'd be like if you watched No Time to Die or Spectre before you watched Casino Royale. So Casino Royale did a great job of establishing that James Bond is kind of clumsy. He's brand new to the job. He kind of doesn't know what he's doing. He gets really lucky occasionally. And that's what this buildup is for Leon all the way through the Resident Evil games. Because in Requiem, he is the Spectre, No Time to Die James Bond. He never fucks up. He's constantly winning. But you don't have the context. And so I don't know. I'm hoping that is something that will get people to go look back on Leon's journey. If you play Requiem first. If you play Requiem first, you're like, why is this guy so cool? And you go check it out and see what he does in 4.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think that Capcom was probably comfortable leaning that direction because they have put out 2 remake and 4 remake. So they basically have the 2 games that have Leon scaling up into the ridiculous, hollowed out revenant of an action hero that he is in 9. And that, you know, it's probably the point. Yeah, I think the glitz will win people over. Even if you don't have the history with Resident Evil or with Leon the character. And I think the game also, especially in the back half, leans a lot more on you having a history with Resident Evil. But again, I think they do that because the remakes are right there. So you can enjoy the ride as silly and bombastic as it is, and then go and find that context, or just enjoy it for what it is. But yeah, I don't think it's required. Would you say that, Bruce? Do you think you have to know, you have to come into this with knowledge about Leon to have a good time?
Not at all. No, I think he's like Batman. You know, you sort of just assume Leon equals Batman. You know, but I do think the sign of a good narrative is that it made me start thinking about 2 remake and 4 remake, and go like, wait a minute, like what was Leon's journey? Why is he so hollowed out? Why does he have no light in the eyes? You know, like what happened? Why does he have that virus going on? You know, like. So that is generally a good sign of a good narrative. It makes me think about what's happening before, and it makes me want to go play those games again. So all that said, like you said, Lawrence, I would absolutely recommend playing Requiem pretty much for anybody. It doesn't really matter if you're an action game fan, if you're a immersive sim. I really think you're pretty much like almost everybody's going to love this game.
I think so too. I think the only catch might be is if you are just averse to horror games, because I think in the hospital section, the scares can be pretty intense, and you're made to feel very anxious and vulnerable. The game does have easy difficulty modes, but if you're the type to put one yelp and put the controller down and nope out of the room, then it might be a little too much. But hey, that's what Let's Plays are for, I suppose. But either way, super easy game to recommend. If for no other reason than it's just pretty and loud and silly enough to be a good time, and it does hold up to further scrutiny, which is always a good mix. Speaking of good mixes, you and us, thank you for watching this review for Resident Evil Requiem. We don't do this too much, but it's fun to do. I love chatting about games with you, Bruce, and hopefully you got something out of it. If you did, consider subscribing to the channel. Watch our content. We love making it, and we'll see you next time on Inside Games.